I love TV cop shows, with some of my favorites being Colt Luger, Gumble to Gumble, Beach Justice, and the very popular British TV show from the 80s, Bastard Squad. So when I saw Deathwish Enforcers available on Steam, it looked like a wonderful parody of shows like these and I had to try it. Also, I let you, club members, vote on which game I was to review next, and this is what you chose. For the entire two of you that voted, I give you my thanks and my gratitude. Two fucking people. So, Deathwish Enforcers is basically an arcade-style shooter that borrows from games like Rolling Thunder and Sunset Riders. There's not much of a story. You're a cop who plays by his or her own rules and fights a crime syndicate. You pick from 4 different characters who might look just a little bit familiar, like parodies of Dirty Harry, Emma Peel, who ditched her leather cat suit for a more Austin Powers-inspired outfit, Paul Kersey from Death Wish, the Roger Moore iteration of James Bond, and Foxy Brown herself, Pam Grier. Each character has their own stats for speed, power, and special, along with one of 2 shot styles, so there's a nice little bit of variety for everybody. Once you've chosen your character, you'll go from level to level, blasting bad guys with extreme prejudice, saving chicks, and battling bosses. Each level has a different theme, like adult movies, for example. A boat level, some gross prison, there's levels where you ride motorcycles, and more. There's also a bonus game where you get to interrogate a perp by button mashing and beating the living hell out of him. Each of the levels is pretty distinct from one another, and the music is mostly pretty good, too. So there's varieties to the characters, there's variety to these colorful levels. What else has this game got going on? Cheap deaths. A lot of them. When I say the game is arcade style, I mean you're going to die every few seconds, and you will get irritated. You'll be constantly ducking, jumping, and shooting in every direction you can look, and I noticed on multiple occasions that the enemies are spawned in a way that, as far as I can tell, there's no way to get out of, and you will die, especially on the motorcycle levels. The basic enemies are generally faster than you are. Dogs will jump out of nowhere and kill you, then jump off screen, then jump back on screen and kill you again. The bosses, while creative and reminiscent of actors and characters from classic movies, range in difficulty from being brain-dead easy to stupidly difficult. There's this boss who's a copy of Grace Jones from the 80s, and she's immune to bullets, so you have to get in and punch her, but she's about twice as fast as you are, so the only way to land a hit is to get killed, respawn, and hit her during your invincibility window, like when you're blinking real fast. For anybody who's played NES games regularly growing up, you'll immediately recognize this and hate it all over again. As an adult, in 2025. To help with all of this masochism, there's a really useful slide move that'll keep you alive if you're good enough to slide through enemy fire, but don't be surprised if you avoid one shot only to stand up and get killed by another. You also have access to a unique special attack if you can grab the item, which is one of 3 different power-ups scattered in each level. The others will reward you with things like auto-fire or stronger shots. You'll also get killed within the next 2 to 3 seconds after getting it, so don't get too attached. As an extra slap in the balls, if you get the special attack item, you'll lose that if you get killed before using it. So to take all the fun out of strategically using these things, your best bet is to just use it as soon as you get it. So the deaths I can sort of get past, because it's more of an old school arcade game and those are made to empty you of all your quarters. But something I had a hard time with were the controls. They are not game breaking, and what's there works fine. It's pretty tight, though I wish my character would have reacted faster, so maybe it didn't work so fine after all. But what bugged me was that there's no way to stand still and shoot diagonally. And when you're doing so much of it, it kind of sucks to try and shoot an enemy from a temporarily safe spot, only to move out of it and leave yourself vulnerable. Also, if you're on the bottom floor and you hit down and try to shoot, you'll shoot while crouched, like you'll shoot right ahead of you, and that works fine. But if you're on the upper floor because you decided to jump up there, then when you try to duck and shoot, you'll shoot directly below you instead. There's no way around this. Some sort of stand still while firing button would have fixed both of these issues I have with the controls. Again, I know what the developer was going for with all this, but Super Metroid didn't have any problem with this function. Rolling Thunder avoided this issue completely by just not having enemies shoot at you diagonally, and both of these games are admittedly pretty freaking old at this point, so I wish it would have been fixed here. And yet a bigger problem I had with this game, which I now realize is an issue with just about any arcade game like this that I played as a kid, is that once you've beaten it, you don't really want to go back and play it. You've seen it all. I beat it on normal, and I unlocked a higher difficulty, a music player mode, and the ability to play with more credits. The game was already punishing on normal mode, so why would I want to go through that again with it even harder? It's not like it was rewarding to beat it the first time. There's no skill involved. You're just basically trying to out-bullet sponge your enemies long enough to make it to the next level. Losing all your lives and continues puts you back to the title screen, but then it gives you the option to start at the last scene you were at with all of your lives and continues refreshed, basically negating the need for continues to begin with. And speaking of, if the game gets too difficult, the options menu from the title screen lets you pick from multiple difficulties, the amount of lives and continues you get, whether to include enemies like dogs, even how often your score will let you get extra lives. So they don't totally hang you out to dry with a super unfair game, and that is nice, but also, in a way, it contradicts the spirit of the game to make it like that and also let you drop the difficulty to what is basically game journalist difficulty. And personally, I feel like balancing the game itself would have just been better. One last point that I want to make briefly is that this is not a game for kids. There's a lot of partial nudity in this and other not safe for work imagery, and I know most of my audience are guys and, yay, nudity and all that stuff. But if you got any little ones around the house, you won't want them seeing this. I mean, it can be pretty funny, and I get the dirty 1960s and 70s action cop vibe they went for. But I think most of you know by now that I'm a dad, and I just wanted to point that out. Not knocking it by any means, just a word of caution if you have kids who like to watch you play. So to summarize, Deathwish Enforcers had some great stuff going, but ultimately felt pretty disappointing. It's got nods to older arcade games and obviously movies and TV shows that, well, we'll call old guys like myself seasoned veterans will recognize and get a laugh out of. It's got a fairly raunchy sense of humor that I think a lot of you club members will also enjoy, but that shine wears off by the end credits. It's meant to be played through multiple times, but I just didn't have enough fun to go back to it after my first playthrough unless it were to be done with friends. But even then, you'll all be done with it after your first co-op playthrough too. If you insist on wanting to give it a shot, then I would wishlist it for when it goes on sale for under $10 because it's easier to recommend at that price range, but I wouldn't touch it full price. And that's all I got for this review. Thanks for watching.